Today I'm taking you to a traditional open-air market in Beijing. And only a few kilometers away stands Beijing's largest shopping complex, the enormous Super Hobson One, covering around 465,000 square meters. After visiting the market, I took my son there to eat roast duck at Bianifang, a Beijing restaurant with a history of about 610 years. But before the video begins, I want to have an honest conversation with you. I've recently noticed that several Chinese vloggers making obviously staged lifestyle videos are getting incredible traffic. Some of them reportedly received more than 1 million views on their very first video. But from the perspective of a Chinese viewer, many of those videos feel extremely fake and painfully boring. They are clearly staged, especially the scenes involving grocery shopping and cooking. Food delivery in China has become unbelievably competitive. Groceries, household products, and restaurant meals can all be ordered online at extremely low prices. Someone will bring clean, convenient, and often cheaper products directly to your door. So, for many younger Chinese people, there is very little reason to go out and buy everything in person. Of course, supermarkets and traditional markets are not completely empty, but today, their regular customers tend to be older people, including many who are less comfortable using smartphones and delivery applications. Those vloggers who are skilled enough to stage complicated scenes for the camera definitely know how to use delivery apps. In real life, I seriously doubt that many of them would regularly leave home just to buy a few vegetables, and to be honest, their cooking skills often look terrible as well. Yet, those obviously staged videos receive enormous traffic, while my videos, where I sincerely try to tell the truth, receive very few views. So I have made a decision. If this video also performs badly, I may give up introducing the real China and transform myself into a staged lifestyle vlogger. After all, my cooking skills are definitely better than theirs. There will only be one problem. The ingredients I pretend to buy at the market might be wasted. After finishing the staged market scene, I would probably still open a delivery application and order cheaper, fresher, and better quality ingredients online. But we can discuss my future career as a fake vlogger later. For now, let's take a look at a real traditional market in Beijing. A Chinese dadi is not exactly the same as a normal supermarket or permanent farmer's market. It is a traditional market held on particular days of the week. Vendors gather together to sell vegetables, fruit, meat, cooked food, clothing, household products, antiques, pets, and many other things. The common fruit and vegetables are not especially interesting, so I won't spend too much time explaining them. These stalls are selling small wooden and natural objects designed to be handled and polished in the palm. The most common items here are walnuts. Playing with walnuts became especially popular among members of the Eight Banners during the Qing dynasty. These men received financial and material support from the imperial system. Many of them did not have to perform ordinary agricultural or manual labor, so they had plenty of time to develop different forms of entertainment. Walnuts were among the simplest and most convenient objects to carry around. Over time, the practice spread from elite Manchu circles into wider Beijing society. The basic idea is simple. You select 2 walnuts and match them into a pair. The more similar they look and the more attractive and unusual their shape and natural patterns are, the more valuable they become. Before the pandemic, when the Chinese economy was growing rapidly and the collectors were spending huge amounts of money, an exceptional pair of walnuts could reportedly sell for more than 1 million renminbi. There used to be a joke comparing wealthy people in Beijing with wealthy people in Shanghai. A rich person in Shanghai might spend 1 million renminbi designing a small luxury sofa. A rich person in Beijing might spend the same amount buying 2 walnuts. Of course, they are not nearly that expensive anymore. There is an old Chinese saying, "In prosperous times, people collect antiques. In chaotic times, they buy gold." Just look at how much gold prices have risen in the past couple of years, and how much the prices of Chinese antiques and collectibles have fallen. The scale of the increase in gold is roughly comparable to the scale of the decline in these collectibles. After buying the walnuts, people continuously rotate and polish them in their hands. The specialist term is pan, which means gradually handling and polishing an object through repeated contact. There are two main methods, wen pan and wu pan. Wen pan, or gentle polishing, means carefully rotating the walnuts without allowing them to knock against each other. Wu pan, or forceful polishing, means allowing the two walnuts to rub and collide. Over a long period, the oils from your hands and the constant polishing make the surface darker, smoother, and shinier. A beautifully polished pear can look extremely attractive. However, expensive walnuts should normally only be polished gently. If you use the aggressive method, you may gradually wear away the most valuable natural ridges and patterns. Once the walnuts become damaged or ugly, their value can collapse. China has a hugely popular xiangsheng, or traditional comic dialogue performer named Yu Qian. He is the long-term stage partner of Guo Digang, and they regularly perform around the world. Yu Qian himself once recounted that he arrived in New Zealand carrying a valuable pair of walnuts. Customs officers stopped him because New Zealand has extremely strict biosecurity rules and untreated seeds and plant materials may not be allowed into the country. The officers initially wanted to confiscate the walnuts and might not have allowed him to enter with them. But the pair was reportedly worth several 100,000 renminbi, so he spent a long time explaining that they were valuable collectibles, not seeds intended for planting. Eventually, he was allowed to enter New Zealand, but the walnuts had to be shipped back to China. The delivery was so slow that he completed the entire overseas tour and returned home before the walnuts finally reached Beijing. These stalls specialize in selling meat. Vegetables and fruit might still be worth buying at a traditional market, but personally, I would never buy meat here. Receiving slightly less than the weight you paid for would be one of the smaller problems. My main concern is the lack of consistent quality control. Look at the lighting above many of these stalls. They use strong red lights to make the meat look fresher, redder, and more attractive. When the same kind of meat is displayed without red lighting, it immediately appears much less appealing. Even when two pieces of meat look similar, I still cannot guarantee that their flavor or quality will be the same. Pork sold through unreliable channels can sometimes have an unpleasant odor. The pork I normally order online is not only inexpensive but also has reliable quality, no strong odor, and a much better flavor. This leads to an interesting cultural difference involving pork. In China, male pigs raised for ordinary pork production are commonly castrated when they are young. This helps reduce what is known as boar taint, the strong smell and flavor that can occur in meat from sexually mature male pigs. Farming practices and animal welfare rules vary from country to country. In some places, physical castration is restricted, discouraged, or performed differently. As a result, some Chinese people living abroad say they are shocked when they first encounter pork with a strong boar-like odor. Some describe the smell in an extremely direct and unpleasant way. They say that after boiling the pork, the cooking water smells as though someone had urinated in it. That description may sound disgusting, but it shows how strongly some Chinese consumers react to the difference. Behind the meat section are all kinds of food stalls. You can simply enjoy looking at them. If I were one of those staged lifestyle vloggers, I could film these stalls from carefully selected angles, use beautiful close-ups, and make all the food look incredibly delicious. But in reality, much of it is neither especially hygienic nor especially tasty, and some of it is not even cheap. China has countless genuinely excellent restaurants and food businesses. If you are interested, I can take you to places where the dishes truly have attractive colors, wonderful aromas, and excellent flavors. But again, if this video receives no traffic, I may stop filming honest food reviews and become a professional fake vlogger instead. This food deserves a special explanation. It is called Jian Maoden. Inside the egg is a chicken embryo that had already developed into the visible shape of a chick but died before successfully hatching. When I was a child, I did not understand what it was, and I actually thought it tasted quite good. After learning exactly what I had been eating, I could never eat it again. I filmed this market around noon. That is why the sections selling vegetables and meat were already relatively quiet. Many people had completed their shopping earlier in the morning. but because it was lunchtime, the stalls selling prepared food were still attracting plenty of customers. Alright, we have finished exploring the market. Now let's travel a few kilometers and enter a completely different version of Beijing, Super Hobson 1. This shopping complex is unbelievably large. After walking through the market under the summer sun, I was hungry, exhausted, and extremely hot. So instead of slowly exploring the entire mall, I took my son directly toward the restaurants. This restaurant is called Jubaoyuan. It serves traditional Beijing-style lamb and beef cooked in a copper hot pot. The brand has been passed down for more than a century and is considered one of the better-known places for traditional Beijing hot pot. This one is called Nanluo Feimao. In my opinion, it is one of the better grilled fish restaurant brands in Beijing. And this is Beijing, one of Beijing's most famous historic roast duck restaurants. Many international visitors have heard of Quanjude. Quanjude is known for Gualu roast duck, which is roasted in an open hanging oven. Beijing is famous for Manlu roast duck, which is cooked inside a closed oven. Because this branch is located inside a modern shopping complex, it has made many adjustments to suit contemporary customers. The menu, decoration, and service style are much more modern than those of a traditional old Beijing restaurant. There were only 2 of us, so we ordered half a roast duck. My son is still not very skilled at wrapping the duck inside the thin pancake, but that does not matter. As long as the food eventually reaches his mouth, the mission is successful. Although he is already 10 years old, he still likes ordering children's meals whenever he sees them on a restaurant menu. This is a cold noodle dish. Because it is currently summer, the restaurant introduced it as a seasonal item.
全烫了那个，还冒着热气儿呢。里脊是猪肉口味儿。你尝这个，
这是啥？
老北京炙子烤肉，
什么肉？
羊肉啊。
This is traditional Beijing jizzy barbecue. The main ingredients are lamb, coriander, and scallions. To prevent the food from becoming cold and losing its texture and aroma, the restaurant places a small heating stove underneath the serving plate. The roast duck and the thin pancakes used to wrap it are also kept warm in a similar way. The cold noodles, however, do not have any heating. They are supposed to be eaten cold. To be honest, the jizzy barbecue here was only average. One of the most famous historic restaurants specializing in this dish is Karuan, which has existed for around 340 years. Another famous restaurant is Karuroji, with a history of around 176 years. If this video performs well, I can take you to try them. The cold noodles were a new dish, but unfortunately they were also disappointing. The noodles should have been smooth, springy, and pleasantly chewy. Instead, they had become soft and collapsed into something almost resembling a bowl of paste. My son also ordered dumplings filled with beef and scallions. They looked acceptable, but the edges of these dumplings appeared to have been pressed together rather than properly folded and wrapped. Traditionally wrapped dumplings usually have a better structure and a more satisfying chew. One of the most particular traditional ways to serve dumplings is to boil only 5 at a time. Once those 5 are eaten, the next 5 are cooked. This prevents them from becoming cold, losing their texture, or sticking to one another on the plate. There is also a traditional way to enjoy them step by step. First, you eat them without dipping anything to taste the original flavor. Then you try them with just vinegar. Finally, you add both vinegar and chili sauce, letting the flavor gradually become richer and more intense. Of course, this is only a suggestion. Everyone can simply eat them in whichever way they enjoy the most. However, 便宜坊 signature dish, the roast duck for which it has been famous for more than 6 centuries, was still extremely delicious. My son clearly enjoyed it very much. There is one design feature in this shopping center that I consider a complete failure. To make the building look more attractive, the designers installed a huge glass roof. But during summer walking underneath, it feels like entering a sauna. By the way, the listed price of this meal was 356 renminbi, which is a little more than 50 United States dollars. The cold noodles were complimentary. This restaurant gives members one free dish every month. The dishes they offered in previous months were generally quite good, but this month's cold noodles were probably the worst one so far. The restaurant also had a membership promotion. Customers could add 500 renminbi to their account and receive an additional 288 renminbi in credit. The promotion also included half a roast duck worth 168 renminbi, as well as another dish worth more than 100 renminbi. When everything is included, paying 500 renminbi gives you close to 1,000 renminbi in total value, so the meal was not actually expensive. After accounting for the promotion and the complimentary dishes, the real cost of this meal for the two of us was less than 30 United States dollars. And that is what makes this part of Beijing so interesting. Within only a few kilometers, you can move from a noisy traditional market selling vegetables, meat, walnuts, and street food to an enormous modern shopping complex filled with historic restaurant brands, polished interiors, and contemporary family consumption. Neither place represents the whole of Beijing, but together they show two very real sides of the same city. So tell me honestly, do you want me to continue showing you the real China, including the disappointing food, inconvenient designs, and ordinary details? Or should I buy a basket, pretend to shop for vegetables, cook a beautiful meal for the camera, and begin my new career as a staged Chinese lifestyle vlogger? Your views will decide my future.